So welcome to another episode. We've called this episode the University Challenge.
Yep.
My name's William.
I'm Michael.
And Michael, if you want to, let our viewers in on what we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So today we're going to just jump straight into it. As Will said, we're looking at the title being called University Challenge. So we're looking at the educational institutions and how that plays out. So jumping straight into a recent report by the Social Mobility Commission. So I'm just going to read a quick excerpt from that, and it starts off by saying that inequality is now entrenched at birth, citing failures in education and employment policies. It goes on to say, being born privileged means we are likely to stay privileged, but being born disadvantaged, or in some cases being born into, for example, a black community, or these days they like to call it BAME,
Yeah.
which is
Black, Asian, minority ethnicities.
You've got it, that's the one. So this means that you have to overcome a series of barriers to ensure that you and your children are not stuck in the same trap. So that essentially is getting into the issue there by the Social Mobility Commission. Now, Will, what other,
Issues do we face?
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I was reading a BBC article, and the BBC article was going into the fact that there's actually an attainment gap with BAME students, looking at the gap between them and white students.
Okay.
And it's getting first at 1-1s and 1-2s, first and upper degrees.
Oh yeah, 2-1 they call it, isn't it?
Yeah, 2-1
Yeah.
and a 1-1.
Yeah.
And the article was going into that because the NUS, National Union of Students,
Yep.
they did a study, and it just highlighted this gap. I think it was a gap of like 13%.
That's
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another issue. So it's another issue. There's the issue of that. Attaining those degrees, and the question is why. Why do students from, should we say, a black background, black upbringing, why are they getting different results? And the study, the article which I was reading went into that, and also it pointed out, one of the important things that it pointed out on that is role models.
Yeah. I think that's something that's very key. I suppose for a role model, you want to attain and achieve what you can see, and if you have no obvious role models there for you,
we need people need tangible evidence,
Yeah.
tangible proof. If there's that saying, without seeing, no believing. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to expand on that, and I'll go into. I'm actually in a privileged position at the moment to be a university student.
You're doing your masters, aren't you?
Yes, just about to complete
Yeah.
masters in legal practice. So essentially now I've been in the position where not only was I a student, but I've also decided to volunteer myself as a course rep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I work very closely with the the NUS, the student union at my university, and what I noticed was, especially in that position, we are the bridge between the students and the tutors and the NUS. There are not enough representatives from a black background.
Yeah. You can see that straight off the bat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I suppose when I was asked initially, I was asked to volunteer and do my part. At first I thought, no, I haven't got the time to do so, but I realised it was probably my duty to do so.
You had to represent.
Yeah, I had to represent, and I had to
represent.
Yeah, I had to make sure that there were other students. The university is very big, so all students, all walks of life.
Yeah. But
like you say, the research and the statistics do show that there is a key, I suppose, there's an imbalance when it comes to the attainment issues and also the role model issues when it comes to black background. So
Yeah.
I thought I'll do my part to make sure that I can make a difference in that. What I believe is giving the students a positive role model. I think that deep down there is an unconscious bias amongst the students, that if they can't see someone in their field or in a certain field,
that writes off their what's the word, a career in that field.
It writes off their motivation, it writes off their belief in being able to do so, because sometimes, like you said, in order to you got to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
So I think in my position, I was in a fortunate position to work in it was the students, it was the course representatives. We had an annual conference.
Okay.
So I was fortunate enough to speak in front of 150 students or so, and just to give them, it was really and truly just giving them my personal background and my story and where I've come from. But I found that very important because it also was inspirational to other students who approached me afterwards just to say, thanks, or to approach me to ask certain questions. So I do really believe that role models are very important in that aspect. Right.
And so we've looked at, there's that issue there with attainment of first and upper class degrees, but also there's another issue as well. And I came across this article in the Independent. I think it was dated from December last year, 2018. And in that article, it pointed out that it was looking at Cambridge University.
Sure.
And as we know, Cambridge is one of the top 5 universities in the UK.
They call them red brick universities, don't they?
Yep. You've got Oxford, Cambridge, the top 5: Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial London, St Andrews, LSE. I mean, that was it does change, but that was from my research, that was
the mainstays. That's pretty much year in year out.
And that's like that's also a prestige thing as well, isn't it? What university did you go to? Oh, I went to Oxford. Right. It's like, I mean, in America, it's like we've all heard of like Yale, and so if you're going to go and study law, oh, I studied law at Yale.
Yeah, or Harvard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's
status.
Yeah.
It's prestige.
And the interesting thing is that the article in the Independent, it pointed out that over a 5-year period, the Cambridge colleges they had an intake of only 10 black students.
In the last 10 years?
Oh no, over a 5-year period.
5-year period. Okay.
Yep. 10 black students.
Oh, it's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And
well, I'll ask you something. Why is that? Is it because they're refusing to admit these students, or on the alternative, is it because these students are choosing not to apply for these institutions? What do you believe is? Well, or is there always two perspectives and two sides to the story?
There's multiple different stories. I mean, I was having this conversation with I've got a Ghanaian friend who I work with, and I was having this conversation with him, and he told me that he likened it. We were standing near a bus stop actually, and he looked across the road and he said to me, he said, Will, it's like imagine you look over that bus stop, and you see 10 white guys lined up for the bus there, and then 10 white guys, the bus comes along, picks up the 10 white guys, and goes along to the next stop. There's another 10 white guys. Now, some people may look at that bus and think, oh, only white people on the bus.
Well,
like, is that
the white bus service?
Yeah, is it
white bus with white passengers?
Is the bus driver racist?
Yeah.
People might look at it in a certain angle, and so I found this story quite amusing. But really, until you get to a bus stop where maybe there's should we say some some black some black people standing at the bus stop to pick them up. Until they come to a stop like that, you're going to have a bus full of white people.
So am I taking it that what you're trying to say is, if you're not in it, you can't win it?
That's it. You've got to be in it to win it, and okay, we're not ruling out that there is racial biases and racial discrimination. That could be part of it as well. But also, there's the other side of that story that if people don't apply to these top the top universities, then obviously, their numbers are going to be lower, and they're not going to be able to, improve their diversity as well.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, being Positively Black as the foundation, we are encouraging all students from whether predominantly from a black background or a BAME background, you must apply to be considered. That's going to be the number one thing. And what I wanted to discuss
Yeah, tell me about that. Michael the other day he sent me this video, and it was an analogy.
Yeah.
It was an ant analogy. But Mike, you know, tell the viewers what all about. Just explain it.
Sure. So the ant analogy is essentially, if you have an A4 piece of white paper and you have an ant, you know, you magic up both those two things. Get a pen, okay?
Yeah.
A biro, a simple biro will do. So the ant's running around the piece of paper.
Yeah.
What you will do, you'll draw a circle around the ant on that piece of paper.
Yeah.
Mysteriously, that ant, typically, okay, I'm not saying this is foolproof,
No.
80-90% of the time, he will believe that he's trapped. He'll believe, for example, that circle that's surrounding him, however small, however large, he cannot go outside that parameter.
He sees a barrier.
He sees a barrier, okay? Now, the way I use this analogy, what I like to relate this to is what we just discussed previously. If you're not in it, you cannot win it. So the point I'm making there is, we are, in essence, putting barriers around ourselves. And I don't just relate this in relation to Positively Black Foundation, in all walks of life. Okay?
Yeah.
We have so many.
It could be business. It could
Yeah,
be
it could be
applying for jobs.
Yeah.
I can't be an astronaut. Why not?
Exactly.
You know,
it's because you've put that circle
yeah,
around you.
I can't be the next prime minister. Why not?
What we're going to do, I'm going to leave the actual the clip or the video. We're going to get a link and we're going to put it at the just underneath the video on YouTube. Yeah.
We're going to leave the link
Okay,
down there
put a
so
link
people
down
can
there
watch
so
that.
you can watch that. But what I'm trying to get at with that is, essentially, we have all sorts of things. You know, we are bombarded with information, opinions from online, from teachers, from parents, and this all goes to mold our beliefs and it creates our reality.
It's negative. It's negative. It's basically negative reaffirmment, isn't it? It's
in some cases, yes. Don't get me wrong, Will. We do need sometimes to have some sort of boundaries, and I understand that. But my point is, you do not want these to become negative or negative reinforcement of, you know, I'm not good enough, or, you know, I'm not going to apply to that university because, you know, I won't get taken anyway. You know, that's not the attitude to have.
Put it down as your first.
Exactly,
You know?
that should be your first option.
Apply to these universities.
Indeed.
Because there is. I mean, we're going to cover it more in another video. The fact of, you know, out in the workplace, the problems which, you know, young black people will face out in the workplace, and, you know, it's something which we need to discuss. But so without, you know, kind of going on to the other video. You know, it's at the end of the day, it's going to there are going to be you know, as I say, people who, you know, racially biased. We're going to face that.
Yeah,
you know?
that's there. Look, no one's denying that's there. We didn't form Positively Black to sugarcoat things. The facts are there, and the stats are there to back that up. So essentially what I wanted to get at with the anti-analogy is, what we need to do is we need to remove the invisible barriers which stop us from progressing.
The ones that we put in front of ourselves.
The ones that we put in front of ourselves. And the only person that can do that, it's not you, it's not me, it's you, the individual, that can
because we can sit here, me and Michael can sit here, you can watch our videos, and, you know, we can tell you, do this, do that. But it's that good old saying of, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You've got to be adventurous. You've got to, you know, start to believe in yourself. You have to, you know, leap of faith. They call it leap of faith.
Yes, it's a leap of faith. Take the leap. And it's easier said than done. Sometimes, you know, all these, especially the video conversation that we're having, there's a lot of words coming at you. So sometimes a lot of words don't mean anything. But what they say, practice makes perfect. So take some of the terms and some of the wording that we're using here and try to just rehearse that and put it into practice, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, what we, with the Positively Black Foundation, what we want to do is we want to help, you know, we want to help people. And, you know, from the article, you know, the article within the BBC with regards to attainment, and also, you know, from some of the other materials which we've looked at, the common theme is role models.
Yeah.
You know, and a Positively Black, you know, we did this project. Me and Michael sat down. We thought, okay, we're going to do this project because there's a lot of feedback, not just from those studies, but there's a lot of feedback. You know, I've seen stuff on TV.
I put my life on the risk for this. Okay, this is very important to me. I understand this might make me a marked man, but I'm brave enough to take the plunge. And again, like you said, role models are needed.
Yeah.
I am putting myself out there as a role model, this is something that I believe that I need to give to the younger generation, the younger black generation growing up. They need to hear voices which discuss these types of things, especially education is the key thing, isn't it? Starting from primary, secondary, upwards. We're discussing today higher education.
And also it stems back to family and in the home as well, because we'll cover that in future videos. But we are a product of our life, the way we've been brought up as children. Like Michael said, primary school, high school, that all affects us. And so in coming months, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be having some interviews. We did talk about this before in our first video.
Yeah.
We're going to have some interviews with real life people, real life examples, with role models who they've done it, they've made it. But what we feel is we need to show you, the viewer, we need to show you these examples.
100%.
Because then you've got it's that tangible evidence that, yeah, I can be that director of that department of that bank. Yes, I can be that politician. Yes, I can be that film actor. I mean, you need to see it. Me and Michael can't just sit here and talk about it.
Exactly, and again, this is one of the main things that we'll be doing is showcasing, is to provide the role models. There's no point, I always say there's no point talking the talk. We've got to walk the walk.
Yeah.
So when we are walking the walk, we'll be having the pleasure of having these individuals with us, and then they'll be able to describe
what they've gone through,
any barriers, etc. But then it gives you the opportunity to know that it can be done, and as long as you set your right belief, then it shouldn't be any issues apart from those which you may face. But then you have to sort out our beliefs first and foremost. Now, I also do believe that the institutions, and again, just going off what the whole conversation, institutions have a role to play. I think the institutions, as I'm currently based in one, we should all pull together using all our resources and be able to provide our students, to give them a sense of belonging, especially for example, if you're from a black community or you're a BAME student, you should be made to feel included or inclusive. Welcome, yeah, that's very important, because
if
that's
you're not
maybe
made to
the
feel,
only way we're going to reduce the attainment gap here, because there are obvious issues. Why is there an attainment issue? It's not due to an academic difference. Arguably, you can argue that brighter students are from other parts of the world. Arguably, however, it's not down to that. It's down to the fact that the application is not there, and that's what needs to be improved.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
So we look forward to expanding upon this in future videos. We look forward to in our next video. What we're going to talk about in our next video, Mike? It's going to follow on from this.
Well, we should follow on from this, and I think what we'll look at is go straight into corporate UK and employment. That's going to be quite important, because it follows on straight. As soon as you're finished your education, you're launched straight into your career and/or job. Then what happens? What issues? What barriers are faced?
And how can you positively overcome these barriers?
Indeed.
And it's something which is important. So that will follow on nicely from today's discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Will, you wanted to.
I wanted to encourage people to if you like what myself and Michael are saying, if you appreciate what we're discussing, there is a subscribe button down the bottom. Please subscribe.
It's the red one, the big red button.
Yeah. Push that, and obviously we'll be delivering many more videos, and hopefully you'll enjoy them. So
and some thumbs up as well.
That is always appreciated. That is always good.
And share with your family and friends. This is the whole point. What we're trying to do, we're trying to reach out.
We're trying to spread a positive message, because it's all very good to talk about negativity, but that doesn't actually achieve anything. So spread the word. Stay positive.
Stay positively black. Until next time.
See you later.